Well, that's the President's Democracy Day speech, and it contained lots of names, as you've heard there. So today on the show, we're bringing you one of those names mentioned. By the way, this is not exhaustive. There are other names that were mentioned. In fact, some people raised issues that their names ought to have been mentioned, but obviously, all of the names cannot be mentioned, but we have joining us on the show this morning one of the prominent names mentioned. His name synonymous with the CLO, but you get a sense of what that means during the course of the conversation. We're joined by Honorable Abdul, former member of House of Representatives, former Executive Director, Civil Liberties Organization, CLO. He's a journalist, lawyer, human rights activist. Joins us live from our Abuja studio. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you, and I don't know how you felt hearing the president mention your name. So let's start from there. How did it feel for you hearing the president mentioning your name? And I imagine that is a big deal, but what was the significance for you?
Well, it's important that the president acknowledged the struggle that we waged over time to end military rule.
Right.
It is important that the president acknowledged the struggle we waged over time to end military rule. And as, like you said, I didn't hear the speech initially, but there was a WhatsApp group I belong. And I started getting calls from people everywhere saying that the president mentioned my name. Of course, I was thrilled, like you said. And there were a lot of people who were involved. The president could not have mentioned everybody. But the fact that now we have a president who was part of the struggle, who was driven into exile, who was detained, and then he was driven into exile. And while in exile, he was haunted from various, right across the West Africa coast and other parts of the country, and he survived it all, and he gave everything, he gave all the support to the pro-democracy struggle. I know personally some of the steps he took support the struggle, especially those names of especially those that are passed on, their families and all that. So that is, the struggle is going to continue because we still need to entrench democracy. We still need to consolidate democracy. We still need to build democratic institutions. Because democracy is not the end. It's a means to an end. It's a road, it's a journey.
Right.
And as what we are looking for is good governance, like your colleague said. And if we have good governance, the people are happy, there's prosperity in the land, there's security in the land. And we have a nation that is self-restraining with strong institutions that are working. The situation like what you have in River State will not happen because the system will be driving itself. The people will come in, they will play their role and then leave, and then the institution will remain working for the people.
We want to.
So we have the rule of law.
Right. Pardon me.
That must be strengthened. We have the judiciary that must remain independent. And then we have the press must remain free. Journalists will not be harassed by anybody, not by the police, not by political people. And then we must have a vibrant civil society that will work, as part of the process to strengthen democracy and to defend democracy. So I think the journey just has to continue. We're still at this early stage of it.
And the president said that
25 years
much yesterday.
Relative democracy.
Right. If you can hear me, Honorable, yes, the president mentioned that. He said it time and again that this is something we have to continue with. But we want to get a benefit of your experience then, particularly for the younger generation who obviously did not experience it or were too young to even understand what was going on then. Because we're trying to compare what it was then with what it is now, what we fought for, and what we have right now. And I was looking through front pages of old newspapers, courtesy archiving. I see CLO boss arrested over pirate radio. So you were arrested. I saw other parts, CLO chief, Obasanjo's lawyer to face Aziza. So if you could just paint a picture of your experience then, maybe a short version of it, so we can understand what it was then, essentially.
Thank you very much. Let me say that Thank you very much.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Let me say that I was a journalist like you. I came into journalism at around November. Where I'd gone to school, I started around November '83, and then the coup happened December 31st, 1983. The military came in, so we had to. I was 23 years old. Now I'm 64. We started the struggle at that time, so because I saw myself as using journalism to defend the defenseless. I felt military rule must never be allowed because they had they didn't have the mandate of the people. Even though there were problems with the Shagari administration, with everything, I thought maybe the process should be allowed to continue, and then errors will be made, there will be corrections, and then we'll continue to work on it and strengthen the institutions of democracy. But that was not to be. But when the military came in and then they promised to hand over, they came out, Babangida now replaced Buhari. And of course, as you know, under the Buhari administration, there was a lot of totalitarian rule. I mean, people were arrested arbitrarily. Many of them, especially the politicians, they were humiliated. And some died in prison or shortly after leaving prison. And there was an attempt to demonize democracy, to make it look as if it's not going to work or it's not going to work in Nigeria. And then at the point, the military felt that Buhari was no longer implementing their policy, and they removed him. Then when Babangida came in, relatively popular, people said, well, this one is smiling. Buhari wasn't smiling, Diabo wasn't smiling, but this one is smiling, so let's hope he's going to give us something. Then we started seeing him shifting the goalposts, deceiving the Nigerian people. And I remember Akaba Shorun, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, said, look, everybody is talking about a secret agenda. This man doesn't have a secret agenda. He has an open agenda to capture the state, to entrench the culture of militarism, to demonize the political class so that the military will be at the hierarchy, at the apex of decision-making in Nigeria for many years to come. This is his agenda. So the politicians were speaking on the side, but many of them were afraid of coming out to confront the military. So in 1987, we set up the Civil Liberties Organization, led by Olisa Bakoba, Clement Wankwo, myself, Richard Akinola, and a couple of others. And then we started bringing in young people, young students, activists from the universities, like Chima Obani that was mentioned by the president in the speech, and many others, IOB and all. And then we started working. So we worked for almost 8 years or close to 10 years before June 12. And when June 12 there were a series of attempts to hold elections. The military were dictating every tune. That they even created political parties, SDP and NRC, that will qualify to contest election. All the other associations that were supposed to register to participate in the election were not allowed. The press was muzzled. People were assassinated. People were detained. There were a lot of executions in the military itself. So when June 12 happened, we felt, well, the time has come for us to have democracy. And the Nigerian people trooped out en masse. Everywhere was peaceful. The election was properly conducted. The result was already coming out. In fact, the results were already released across the country in different polling units and police stations across the country. But the military at the point now said, well, this is going to threaten our stranglehold on the state and the nation and the democratic process. So we was going to control it. So they annulled the election. And then, well, okay, you have annulled the election, but this is not going to stand. And I remember when we were in Geneva during the Human Rights Conference, I remember Malaysia Inca saying, look, this is like pregnancy. It will show the outcome, it will bear fruit. We're not to know the type of fruit that it bore, that will come out, but I know that the struggle started immediately. In July, around I think July 6th, we lost about 200 people in Third Mainland, Lagos, who were protesting. They were killed. Some jumped into the lagoon and in the street of Lagos. At the point we took control of the city, the streets. And there were a lot of massacres, a lot of arrests. People were subdued and subjected to untold hardship. So the press was now evolving into a fascist state. And then, but we didn't allow that to stop us. We continued the struggle. Of course, it gained traction. The labor unions came in, the NUPENG and other, of course, you had the name of Kokori mentioned, the Secretary General of NUPENG, and then other oil workers union came in. And then the NADECO now evolved. NADECO was formed. And I recall the first person to use that word, NADECO, was Chief, when I remember the name, I'll mention it. But the election was free and fair. But we insisted it must produce, the outcome must be respected. We started mobilizing the international community. You know, I was trying to mention Olufalaye was the first person to use that word, NADECO. So all the elders who came together, like Oroh, those who were assassinated from Rwanda and others, they were all playing their role. And of course, Kudi and Abdul, the martyr of the struggle, who was killed, you know, who was assassinated in the street of Lagos, played a very prominent role beyond what was expected of her. Well, people thought she was just a common housewife, but she was very articulate and she was very clear. She was very clear-headed, and she knows exactly what Nigerian should be, not just the fact that she wanted her husband to be president. And then, of course, Abiola was arrested. Initially, he left the country, but he came back and tried to reclaim his mandate. He was arrested. He died in prison. Then I was arrested when the military was now turning on itself. But Abacha came up with what they call a coup. What we thought it was a phantom coup. There was no real coup. And he was trying to eliminate his opponents. So we had a press conference in the house of Beko Asonkuti on the 26th of July 1996. 1995. The day after the conference, the next this man was arrested. Beko was arrested, and then Tunja Abayomi the next day, 27th. Then on the 28th, I was arrested. Well, they had been arresting us before, raiding our offices, seizing our computers, seizing our documents and all that. I thought maybe after 1 or 2 weeks, we'll be asked to go, and then we'll continue the struggle. I remember they tried to arrest me in Jos about a month earlier. Myself and Chima Obane, we had a conference at the Catholic facility there. We were able to escape. No. So it was a very, very harsh situation. And after my arrest, I spent a year in detention. It was, I didn't even know I had the capacity to withstand such situation, because I'm a very restless person. I like to move around. I like to move.
Mr. Oroh, if I may butt in,
keeping me in solitary confinement.
Yeah, apologies if I may butt in. There's a lot of history, and we deliberately allowed you to share as much as you could, so that those who did witness what it meant to be part of the struggle from the trenches will really understand that this was really a struggle. And you painted a picture that showed that everybody involved was determined, with the support of the Nigerian people, to ensure that democracy is enshrined and restored. So looking back at all the struggle, when you look now at what is going on in the country, or just this present era, I'm not talking about just this administration, would you say this is what those of you in the trenches fought for?
Well,
Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I would say that democracy, as I started by saying that democracy is a journey. It's a means to an end. Now we have a freer society. People are not being arrested arbitrarily. People are not being assassinated in the streets. Well, we have crime, we have the Boko Haram, we have banditry, we have other problems, other criminality. But political assassinations, crackdown on journalists, killing of journalists, and arresting people arbitrarily is not what we are experiencing now. Now we have institutions We have had series of elections. These elections are not perfect by any means, but they have produced successions across the country, all over the many states. We have been elected parliaments across the states at the federal level. Now we have a new president that is spending the first year in office. The press is relatively free. Right now, at that time, during this period I'm talking about, I probably would not be in this studio now talking to you. Now we have the civil society is still there, waxing stronger, doing different things. Some are in anti-corruption crusade. Some are fighting for the rights of women, of children, and other social problems. But we still need to, because of the problems of insecurity that we have now, there is the general belief that democracy is not working as it should. I tend to share the belief that this is not exactly what we anticipated. But I also try to understand the fact that, yeah, it may not be what we anticipated, but it's happening. And how do we deal with it? We can deal with it by strengthening the institutions to deal with it. The rule of law. We must eliminate arbitrariness. We must eliminate impunity. If somebody is arrested, he must be prosecuted. And the judiciary should be independent, should be free to, it should not be under any political control. The law enforcement must not be under any political control. They should be professional, they should be well trained, they should be well equipped, and they should have the means, the resources to deal with criminality. And then the prosecution must also be professional. And then if the rule of law prevails, if justice prevails, and if people see that if you can get remedy for an infraction on your rights, then they will believe more in democracy. But I also believe that there is need for us to strengthen, to protect the integrity of the electoral process. It needs thorough reforms. We should believe in it. It must deliver the outcome the people expect, so that they will continue to go to the polls every now and then to vote, to throw out those they don't want and then elect those that they want. There is a lot of things to be done, but of course there must be socio-economic deliverables. The social condition of the people. They should be able to develop, in the country without any hindrance. Farmers should be able to work in their farms with the support of the state, providing implements, the improved seedlings and everything. All those things that will make food for us to achieve food security. Then the traders should be free to trade across the country without hindrance. Then the businessmen should know whatever they are doing is predictable. They should have access to the banks to credit and everything they need to do. And then the state must continue to work on infrastructure. Our infrastructure are in deplorable condition generally across the country. So by the time they see the government touching their lives, doing what they are supposed to do, and then corruption is reduced or eliminated. And then the situation like what we have in Port Harcourt, the godfatherism, state capture, people believing that the state is mine. I can determine what happens in my state because the state is mine, the government is mine, the resources are mine. If we eliminate such tendencies, I think the people will now begin to have more confidence in democracy. But for now, we still have these problems and we must have to work on them.
If we allowed you, your narrative about the many challenges of our democracy would go on and on. But one of the key takeaways from the start of your commentary is indeed that democracy that you fought for, at least relatively, we have a freer society, not quoting you copiously now. Just to support what the president said yesterday, he went on to argue in favor of democracy, which is one of the things that we noted, is that democracy is the best form of government despite all of the complexities, and that there cannot be a democracy without elections. But the key question is, regardless of this argument in favor of democracy, has democracy guaranteed development? And is the president's apology for democracy, is it an acknowledgement of the continental discontent that we have seen on democracies around us, our neighbors, our neighboring countries, which have necessitated or engendered coups, and for which the president is now saying, look, the democracy is the best form of government?
Well, I would like to say that you can develop through totalitarian means, killing people, crushing them, demolishes people's homes. You don't listen to the people, and then you deliver what you call development. You can have the Chinese variant. You can have the Russian variant. But we also know that democracy guarantees peace. It respects the rights of people. It gives people equal opportunity to develop at their own pace, to take decisions by themselves. So you can also develop under democracy. And I believe Nigeria can only be governed properly and effectively and peacefully as a democracy. I believe in democracy. I believe it works and that it can work here. Because the people are responding to it. The people are responding to democracy. When you call out the people to vote, they come out to vote. But there are also some people, especially in the political, what they call the political class, who do not believe in democracy. If they believe in democracy, they wouldn't say I must win at all costs. They would know that an election victory is a victory for the people, not for individuals, and that there is a tenure, there is a term limit, and that if you don't win, it's not a tragedy. That you can win again if you try, or if you convince the people that you are the best candidate, you can come around again and contest and you win. So that is the way I see it. I believe that we can't develop under a democracy because it will be at peace with ourselves. The system will be self-restraining. It will be, and then if something happens, we respond democratically. The institutions will respond. The rule of law will respond. The law enforcement, which is part of it, the judiciary, the executive will respect all the regulations, the rules and regulations. And then that is how we can, if we have these strong institutions responding to the needs of the people, then we can have democracy. And then we can also have development. Right. Because if you say, okay, we have a budget, this budget is meant for road construction, and then you don't steal 50% of it or collude with the engineers in the ministry or the contractors who undermine that project, then you have development. So I believe that democracy can lead to development. Right. It's happening in many countries, in Europe, in the United States. It's happening. You need to go there. It unleashes in people's potentials. People can think innovative, without being restrained. So I think democracy works, and it can work here in Nigeria. Nigerians are very strong, they're very resilient people. Nigerians are very, you could say, brilliant people. Everybody is saying it. I'm not the only one saying it. Look at our artists operating a free environment and delivery. Where you can also see our athletes do the same thing. You see our cultural sector, the Nollywood, delivering and being applauded all over the country. And then you see our cuisine now becoming global. People are now beginning to eat Nigerian food everywhere in the world. Right. So there is something about Nigeria that is working. And all this we need to harness and then give them proper space, a free space, a conducive space. Right. To thrive. Right. I believe we can develop as a democracy. It is possible. But right now, we have a lot of problems, we have a lot of challenges, and all Nigerians, we need to put our hands on deck to get things right. Especially those at the leadership level, because there is a nexus between good governance and effective leadership. If you don't have effective leadership, you don't have good governance.
If I could just comment now, Honorable, quite interesting examples you gave really about the sectors that are working. But it's interesting to also note that those sectors are not related to government. It's been said that those sectors literally self-thrived in spite of all of the challenges around us, but obviously lessons to be learned. But I'd like you to speak to something. We've talked about how we've had 25 years of unbroken democracy. You said democracy works, but obviously it is not working the way it ought to in this part of the world. But when you look closely at those 25 years, I wonder if this is what is responsible, because over 60% of those 25 years, we had people that were military dictators as democratic leaders. So former President Olusegun Obasanjo had been a military head, so he took 8 years. Then we had former President Muhammadu Buhari, who had also been a military dictator, taking another 8 years. So 16 of those 25 years were manned by military people, or at least retired military people. Interestingly, the man who paved the way for current President Bola Tinubu, who then fought against military dictatorship, was former President Muhammadu Buhari. So don't you think that's a contradiction? And that is also, or at least has affected the delivery of democracy dividends in Nigeria?
Yeah, okay. Let me say that it is not many people will remember Ansi Howard, former president of the United States, who led the Allied troops during World War II. He became president of the United States under a constitution. He was elected by the people to rule. And then he did his own and handed over to Kennedy, who was very popular from an opposition party. So I believe that what we have had, what we still have now is a transition process. We are still trying to entrench democracy. The military felt, those who were part of the previous administration, like Obasanjo, I think he was probably forced to come back by circumstances. The mistake we made was that when Abacha died, I remember Abdul Salami took over and a new transition program came out. Those of us who were fighting for democracy decided to sit back and watch. You know, we didn't come out to say, look, we didn't mobilize across the country to say, this is our time to capture power. And I remember the president of South Africa came here, Thabo Mbeki, I think maybe he was vice president then, and said, look, guys, if you cannot enter through the door, enter through the window. You are the first liberation movement, that is the word he used, that I've seen that is not interested in capturing political power. You said you want to hand over the power to the people. Who? The military is saying that they want to hand over to the people. So who are the people? You are the people. So you lead the people to capture political power. We couldn't agree on whether we should participate in politics or not. Of course, some of us felt it would happen. Then in Lagos State, Tinubu and others came out and set up Alliance for Democracy, and they won in all the southwest states. That was the first step. It could have been national, but that was the first step. Then the military now said, look, we need to protect our interests. Let us find somebody who will protect our interests. And then they installed Obasanjo to lead the country. And Obasanjo further entrenched the culture of militarism. Even though he had some civic sides, he respected some people, he was restrained by the Constitution. But you can see that in the early stages, he didn't even believe in the National Assembly. He was fighting the National Assembly, trying to install somebody, and then he had an ambitious vice president who was also trying to snatch power from him. So there was instability in the early stages, you know, and there was also problems in the Niger Delta. His response was military to massacre in Benue State and all that. How did the movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta, how was it disarmed? It was not disarmed by the military. It was when Yar'Adua came in, that succeeded Obasanjo, that he decided to go into negotiation. That is democracy at work. He negotiated, gave them promises, gave them assurances, and these people started surrendering arms. I'm not saying that all the arms have been surrendered. I'm not saying we still don't have pockets of criminality here and there, but generally, that was nipped in the bud. And then the nation got a fresh lease of life. You know, and then the struggle continues, as I said. Then Jonathan came in, Yar'Adua died unfortunately. Jonathan came in, and at the end of Jonathan's administration, when he felt that he had lost the election, he voluntarily relinquished power. Voluntarily. That was an act of a statesman. You know, and then Buhari, who had been contesting and not contesting, got his chance with the support of Tinubu and the party I belong to, the APC, which wasn't called APC then, got his chance and then became president. But when he became president, he started trying to revive the culture of militarism. So he didn't implement the manifesto of the party. Many people were marginalized. He governed as he wished, used his way, but at the end of the day, because of democracy, because of the constitution, he had to step down after 8 years. So I believe there is something about it that is making it impossible for those who wish to stay in power to be removed through the democratic process, and then a new set of people who can consolidate democracy, or who feels they can consolidate democracy, to replace them. So I think there's something about democracy that we must celebrate after 25 years. Yeah.
If I may butt in, two questions, which are, it's almost certain for analysts that the era of dictators coming back for democratic rule is over, because you can literally see the entire old guys are in their 80s or late 70s. They may never come back again. We don't see that happening. So now the hope is that civilians will really run things from here. And now we have President Bola Tinubu. But one of the big questions, he was an advocate of a couple of things that has to do with democracy. It's the issue of restructuring, which I want you to speak to. And I'm sure within the trenches, this was a conversation. Now, people are saying, proposing 1 year term, a single term of 6 years on one hand. The states across, the subnationals, as we look at them, a lot of them are not doing well in terms of their finances, in terms of financial viability. There's a data to support what I've said. I mean, majority of them are not doing well without FAC. So that now brings the call for restructuring, but we're not seeing anything, strongly in that direction. Whether it's too early to expect is another kettle of fish. I want you to speak to the issue of restructuring and the presidency under President Bola Tinubu. Is this something you think he should tinker with as soon as possible?
Well, I think... Can I go on?
Go on, please.
Okay. I think restructuring is already happening. Since 1999, I think there have been about 7 amendments to the Constitution to deal with various issues. Now there are proposals to deal with other issues. Like, for instance, the president has proposed that the local government system should be restored as a unit of government. That is one of the federating units of the federation. I also believe that Nigeria is better off as a federal system, with local autonomies, states and local government working effectively to develop at the local level, to develop their people based on the needs of their people, based on the resources of their people. I believe in that. I believe in fiscal federalism. That is to say, let us share these resources based on this principle of derivables. This is where the resources is coming from. The people who are custodian of that resources, those resources should have a say on how it is managed, how it is exploited, and they should benefit from the exploitation. I believe in that. Then I also believe that we have too many states. We have too many states. If I have my way, I would say we return to the 12-state structure that the military created in 1967. You could say, yes, they were military creation. Yes, they were, but they reflected the way the Nigeria was divided at that time. If the military had left early enough, if we didn't have a civil war, probably Nigeria would have been better developed than it is now. We would not have frittered away resources in bureaucracy, creating institutions, duplicating institutions here and there. So I actually believe that we need to do more in terms of restructuring. I don't believe we should go back to 1959 or 1963 to do a parliamentary system. It didn't work here before. That is why we opted for the presidential system. We can continue to have the presidential system. We can restructure all the various institutions. Like the president said recently that he's going to implement the Oroh's report. There are lots to be adopted there. Scrap some of these federal institutions, merge some of them, trim them, train the staff, the bureaucracy, and then give them the resources to work as independent as possible as state institutions. And then the state government should also respect the fact that the local government is a governor does not own the local government. The resources available to the local government should be used to develop those local governments. areas, to develop the local government areas, not for the governor to use it to do whatever he likes. But then we also have the traditional institutions which is competing with the state for loyalty. We have to look at it. Is there a space for them in our democracy? If there is no space for them in our democracy, then we must define a role for them. Or if we can't stop them, then we must define a role for them. In Ghana, the state does not support traditional institutions. It is the people that support their traditional institutions. So we can say, look, if you want to have an emir or a king or an oba, it's your responsibility. You take care of him. But we will not use state resources to support him. That is it. You keep him as your traditional council, or you keep him as your emirate council, but that is your responsibility. But the state will not be responsible for his car, for his staff, for everything he does. But culturally, maybe the Ministry of Culture can relate with them to advance our cultural values, to practice to develop our culture. As long as they are not interfering with the rights of people as citizens. So we can look at a whole lot of the systems we are practicing in Nigeria that are working against democracy, that are retarding our democratic progress. So the structure of the country is absolutely necessary. But whether we should go back to one term, that is not the issue. If you have, say, a term of 6 years, can you guarantee a free and fair election? I will be happier if we are able to reform the electoral system and that respects the rights of the people, that respects the aspiration of the people, that delivers on what the people want. The vote of the people ends at the ballot and not in the Supreme Court. Then that will be better. That will produce better leaders or that will help our leadership selection, our process of leadership selection, than saying, okay, 6 years you go, another person comes. Let the people decide how many times you will be in power. That should be the right of the people to decide. But the process of, what is more important is the process of bringing you out to rule, to lead the people. It must be what the people want, and it must be through their vote. In a free and fair democratic process, in a free and fair election.
So while we wait...
One problem that we have been having in Nigeria, one problem that we have been having in Nigeria since 59, including the 64 election, even to count our people in population census, we have not been able to do it successfully because of political interest, because of political interference. So once we can trust ourselves sufficiently to deliver on to give voice to the people the way they want it, then Nigeria will fly. That is the way I say it. To conduct elections is not difficult. I have contested elections. I have covered elections as a journalist. I have trained election monitors as a civil society leader. And I know how elections are rigged. I have seen it. And I know how it's done. It is a deliberate act supported by the states, with state resources, the police, that is the security network, with thugs. Some of these thugs wear police uniform. It is not the people that are making it impossible for us to have free and fair elections. It is the vested interest that says we must win at all costs that are making it difficult for us to have free and fair elections. So when we can deal with all that, and then Nigeria will fly. Look at South Africa. They had an election recently. You didn't hear a single person killed.
So while we continue
everybody accepted the outcome.
So while we continue to expect the process to produce good leaders, President Tinubu, in his speech yesterday, may have, given a template by which they should conduct themselves. And that's what I'm going to read from. That would be paragraph 23 of President's speech yesterday. And he said, where other forms of government impose against the will of the people, democracy aims to make leaders sufficiently humble that they conduct themselves as servants of the common good, not as viceroys of the narrow interests of the mighty. So the question is, when you look at the political class now, either it's at the executive or the legislature, or even at the subnational levels, does the lifestyle reflect this template that the president is depicting as what should be representative of the conduct of democratic leaders?
Well, I think the president captured the idea.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the president captured nicely what should be the ideal situation. How politicians must conduct themselves, how political leaders must conduct themselves, how they must relate with the people. But it is now up to the leaders, and in this case, the president will show a vision to lead the process. To say, if you are my minister and you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do this, you are out. If you are arrested, or if there is a case of corruption against you, you will face the law, instead of running away from the law enforcement agencies. Whether you are a governor or, like you said, at all levels, starting, whether subnational, national, and local government, at all levels, you must respect the rule of law. You must respect the financial regulations of your ministry. You must, if you are a prison official, you are giving money to take care of prisoners and to reform them, you must do exactly what you have been told to do. And you are a custom officer, you are collecting your revenues, you must pay them according to how you are asked to pay them, to the source where they can be available for the government to use in the interest of the people. You know, I think that is basically what it is all about. Like I said, there is a nexus between good governance and effective leadership. The leadership must be transformational. It must have a vision. It must have the will, the political will to get certain things done. If he says, this is what the people want and I want to do it, then go ahead and give it a shot. Go ahead and do it. Heaven will not fall as far as we are doing it in the interest of the people. If you need to take a bill to the parliament, send that bill to the National Assembly. Where is the Lawal Waste report? Lawal Waste report that was supposed to be used to reform to reform the electoral system. We have not done anything about it. It's still there, you know. Then I think they gave the secretary to the federal government 12 weeks to bring out a document that they will use to restructure the civil service. I think it was more than 12 weeks now. What is it? I think the president will move with greater speed to get certain things done, to enforce the change that he wants to push through. Because in another a year or two, it will be the election season. And then everything now will depend on political exigencies and necessities.
Honorable,
so I believe this is the time to hit the iron when it's hot. Yeah.
Honorable, quite insightful. We're not done yet having this conversation with you, and it's quite important that we're having the conversation with the persons, or one of the persons in the trenches. And there are issues that are still around us, potential issues that could cause some, polity unease, which is some of the questions we'll be asking you next. But we'll take this quick break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with you. Join us again. Honorable Abdul Oroh, former member of the House of Representatives, one of the persons who fought for this democracy in the trenches in 1993, is still with us in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Honorable, for being with us. And it's quite important, as I said, we have this conversation with the persons in the know. But let's move forward. Now, there is a bit of an unease in the polity, which I want you to speak to. The labor union and the federal government, as well as the organized private sector in the Tripartite Committee, have been trying to get some level of a moderation in what could stand as a minimum wage. Labor is saying 250,000 naira or nothing. The federal government and organized private sector is saying 62,000 naira is what they can offer. The president says he has received those proposals. He will forward it to the National Assembly. We don't know which of them he will forward and how much he will forward. But Labour has come out to say we did not have any agreement, but just in case you forget, we are still standing on our 250,000. This is what democracy is really all about. I want your take on what should it be in terms of approach to collective bargaining? Because on one hand, people are saying, if we pay Labour this, it's going to crumble the economy. Labour is saying, we are charging you based on what is going on in the economy. Mr. Abdul.
Yeah, let me say that there has been over...
Please go ahead.
Yeah, let me say that over time there has been that trust issue between labor and government, between organized, whether it's ASU, you can call them labor, and government. That is, there will be agreements, they are not implemented faithfully. Because of this gap, because of this problem of trust, that is why you see labor is seen as not being realistic or responsible. But let me put it this way. It all boils down to leadership. If a labor minister who knows his duty is appointed as minister, there should be no strike. He should foresee it. He should relate with the trade unions, the workers' unions. There should be the conversation should be an ongoing conversation. You don't even have to wait for the labor unions to give you to put a deadline to say, look, you must implement this by so and so date, or we'll go on strike. This is the 4th or 5th strike we're having in 1 year. It's disruptive. It's destroyed the economy. It's weakening the fabrics of the state. So I believe that don't go into negotiation if you know you are not going to implement it. But you must go into negotiation because we are in a democracy. But if you go into a negotiation, if there is an agreement, you must enforce it. Is it now that we know that it's not just the federal government that has to do with trade unions? We have the private sector. We have the subnationals. You know, we have small businesses. A lawyer with 4 or 5 staff in his chambers, or a restaurant with 3 or 4 or 5 people in the kitchen, or the cocktail staff. Can they pay this amount? There has to be There has to be trust. The negotiation should be in such a way that everybody will understand the issues. The labor unions will understand what the state of the economy is and the capacity of the state and of the economy. And then the state should not hide anything. It should bring everything on the table to say, look, this is what we have. This is what we can. This is how we can do it effectively.
A quick one there, Honorable.
Once they know that it is possible, it will reduce the incidence of strikes. So right now, people are okay. 65,000 to 50,000. For me, those are not the issues. If 3 or 4 months ago we see buses in the streets of Abuja, we see state government. Remember when the president released money for palliatives, and then we see the palliatives touching the lives of the people in terms of maybe public transport system, the health care, more food, reduction in prices of food, and all that. Labour will now understand that the resources available are being used to meet the needs of the people. Then they will not be asking for something that is unreasonable. That is the way I say it. I think the governor should be more proactive. And that the federal government, once you have taken a decision to do something, for instance, like me, I'm opposed to giving money out to individuals. This cash transfer. Use the money to buy buses. Use it to buy things drugs in hospitals, put something in schools, especially at the basic level, and then at the university. If you put internet in all the universities, put solar systems in all the universities, people will see what we are doing. How we are trying to reach the people. That is the palliatives. Those should be the real palliatives. Not cash transfer. I am opposed to cash transfer. I think it's fraudulent.
So a quick one there.
Once they see something happening that will improve the lives of the people, definitely they will accept it. They will listen to the government more. They will say, this government is reasonable. This government is doing the right thing. Let us work together. Not just the federal government now. I'm talking about the subnationals, and then the private sector too. They also contribute.
So because of the imperfection of the process, I noted that you said that if it had been well managed, there would be no strike. Are you then questioning the competence of the labor minister in handling all of this?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Well, on a final note, Honorable, it's been quite an interesting conversation with you about what we ordered in terms of democracy versus what we have or we are getting right now. But I'd like you to speak to this on a final note. It's been said that the people who fought for democracy in that sense, because they were close to the current president now, they seem to have a soft spot for him, and they're not going as tough on him as they would or as they did then. So you have people asking, for example, why is Professor Wole Soyinka saying 1 year is too short to rate the president when, you know, these policies are clear to be seen? Some other people saying it looks like those democracy vanguards have now become people in government. So they ask, was it really fight for democracy or just fight for power?
Let me
Just go ahead.
Look at the number of ministers. Look at the number of appointees since the president came in. Tell me how many of them fought for democracy. So if you can tell me how many of them fought for democracy, then I'll be able to know whether those who fought for democracy are in power or not. Yes, the president fought for democracy. Well, when he now enters the political democratic space, he worked with some people in the political parties. At various levels. Then, where in his forming his government, that is his prerogative. He brought in some they consider technocrats here and there, and all that. They are there working, doing their own. But I cannot say that those who fought for democracy are well represented in this government or in all the appointments that have been made by the president. With due respect to him, you know, it's not. I'm not belly aching. I'm not complaining. But I believe that is the feeling, that is the general feeling in the civil society and in the pro-democracy society. That they fought, yes, they fought, but they are not part of the government. But that, I also believe too that is the reason why they are not, they seem to be giving the president the space to work. That is what I would call it, the space to work. We think democracy, the tools you use in fighting for democracy are not the same tools we use to consolidate democracy. Now, the objective was to get out the military so that the people can decide. Now, you could question the quality of what the people have decided or the quality of the outcome of what the people have decided since 1999, but you cannot now say you must work to undermine it. What you can do is what we are doing now, so making suggestions, exercising our rights to speak out, criticize what we can criticize, make the certain judgment here and there, or suggestions on how to improve on what we have on ground. But I know some people are pushing, okay, military here, military is Mali, military is this. Look at those countries, how many of them have ever had genuine democracy? They have never had. We are working on it. We have been working on democratization.
Right.
And we'll continue to work on democratization. Even if the president Tinubu's tenure ends now, whoever comes in, it will be the same approach. When Obasanjo came in spite of the challenges, the civil society organized a meeting. I led the meeting. I was the one who initiated the conversation, to have a conversation with the president. And he agreed to meet with us. Right. I went through his agency and he invited us to a meeting. We told them what we need to do. We complained about the harassment of Okadibo, all the issues that we had with his government.
It's been quite an exhaustive.
So we have to continue to engage. We have to engage both at formal and informal level.
Indeed.
To see working for the country.
And I think that's a major takeaway from this conversation. But we'd like to thank you so much. It's been very interesting learning from your experience and using those lessons for today and hopefully for tomorrow. We'd like to thank you so much, Honorable Abdul Oroh, former member, House of Representatives, former Executive Director, CLO, Civil Liberties Organization, also journalist, lawyer, and human rights activist. Thank you for your time. And it's good to see you again. I imagine a lot of people seeing you right now and saying,
before we go, let me promote, before we go, let me say that my memoir will be out hopefully next month.
Beautiful.
Yes. I have captured my experience. I have captured my experience in a book. Hopefully it should be coming out next month. Yeah.
Beautiful. We look forward to that. Thank you again, sir, for your time.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we anchor. We always say the labors of our heroes past, yes, may not be in our new national anthem, but it should be in our subconscious. And don't forget that you and I, we're all heroes in the making now. And it depends on what we choose to do today, tomorrow, and the next. Well, thank you for being a part of the Morning Brief today. Sunrise Daily is next. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
Well, they say eternal vigilance is the price of liberty and by extension, democracy. So we'll keep the vigil continuously. Thank you for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow for the final edition that will commence the weekend. I am Bukola Koka.
All right, mine is a simple appeal. Don't give up on Nigeria, and God bless Nigeria. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma.